The observation window felt cold against Danny's forehead. He had been standing there for 3 hours, watching the doctors work on the massive creature inside the medical bay. His breath made small fog patches on the glass that faded and returned with each exhale. The creature was called a storm bear. Danny had learned that from the nurses who sometimes forgot he was there. It came from a frozen planet where everything wanted to kill you, and somehow this beast had survived all of that only to end up dying on a clean white table surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. His mother was somewhere on the ship doing translator work. She had told Danny to stay in their quarters, but he had slipped out early that morning. Something about the storm bear pulled at him. Maybe it was the way the creatures. I followed the doctors with such sad awareness. Maybe it was how gentle the beast seemed despite its size. Danny had a dog back home named Charlie who looked at him the same way when he was sick. Inside the bay, Dr. Rillith moved between monitors with 3 of her assistants. She was tall and covered in soft feathers that changed from blue to purple depending on the light. Her species was called a variant, and she was supposed to be one of the best doctors in the whole galaxy. Danny had heard other medical staff talking about her with respect and a little bit of fear, but even she looked tired now. Defeated. The storm bear's name was Greyfoot. Danny had heard the handler say it 2 days ago before they sent the big warrior away. The handler had cried, actual tears running down his scaled face while he pressed his forehead against Greyfoot's massive head. That was when Danny knew this was not just an animal. This was someone's friend. A new doctor entered the bay, this one with crystal-like skin that reflected the overhead lights. He spoke with Dr. Rillith for several minutes. Danny could not hear them through the glass, but he could see their body language. The crystal doctor shook his head. Dr. Rillith's feathers flattened against her body in what Danny had learned meant sadness or stress. They were giving up. Danny pressed both palms against the window. Greyfoot's breathing looked shallow. The monitors showed lines and numbers that Danny did not understand, but he knew enough to see they were all moving in wrong directions. Down when they should go up. Erratic when they should be steadied. A nurse walked past in the corridor. Danny grabbed her sleeve. She was from the same species as Greyfoot's handler, with green scales and large golden eyes. Is he going to die? Danny asked. The nurse looked surprised to see him there. She glanced at the observation window, then back at Danny. Her expression softened. The doctors have done everything they can, small one. Sometimes that is not enough. But there has to be something else they can try. His body rejects our medicines. The machines hurt him instead of helping. And worst of all, he has stopped fighting. Without the will to live, even the strongest body fails. She patted Danny's shoulder gently. I'm sorry. I know you have been watching over him. She continued down the corridor. Danny turned back to the window. Inside, Dr. Rillith was making notes on a datapad. The other doctors were already shutting down some of the equipment. They had made their decision. Danny looked left and right down the empty corridor. The guard station at the end was unmanned. The shift was changing. He had maybe 5 minutes. He did not think about it. Thinking would mean stopping. And stopping would mean Greyfoot would die alone on that table with only strangers around him. Danny had watched his grandmother die in a hospital back on Earth. She had been surrounded by family, hands held, voices telling her it was okay to let go. She had smiled at the end. Greyfoot deserved at least that much. The door to the medical bay had a security lock, but it was designed to keep people out during emergencies, not to keep them in. Danny slipped through when one of the assistants exited to dispose of used supplies. The assistant did not even notice him. The medical bay was larger inside than it looked from the window. Equipment lined every wall. The air smelled like chemicals and something else Danny could not identify. Maybe alien antiseptic. Greyfoot lay on a reinforced platform in the center. Up close, he was even more massive than Danny had realized. Each paw was bigger than Danny's entire torso. Scars marked his dark fur, old ones and fresh ones. His breathing rattled. Danny walked forward slowly. None of the doctors had seen him yet. They were focused on their final checks and notes. He reached Greyfoot's head and placed his hand on the beast's forehead, right between his eyes. The fur was coarse and warm. I'm here, Danny whispered. That was when the alarm started screaming. Doctor shouted. Footsteps rushed toward him, but Danny did not move his hand. He kept it there, steady and calm, while chaos erupted around him. Greyfoot's eye opened. Just one at first, then the other. They were deep amber, almost gold, and they focused directly on Danny. The massive head shifted slightly under his palm. Dr. Rilith reached them first. Her hand was raised to pull Danny away, but she froze. Her eyes went to the monitors. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Every screen in the medical bay was changing. The numbers that had been falling were rising. The erratic patterns were smoothing. Greyfoot's heart rate, which had been failing for days, suddenly beat stronger and more regular. Two security guards burst through the door. Dr. Rilith held up her hand to stop them. Her voice was barely a whisper. Nobody move. Nobody touch anything. Danny kept his hand on Greyfoot's head. The beast's breathing deepened, steadied. One massive paw shifted just slightly, as if trying to get more comfortable. Impossible, the crystal-skinned doctor said from somewhere behind Danny. This is completely impossible. But it was happening anyway. Nobody spoke for 15 seconds. The only sounds were the medical equipment and Greyfoot's steady breathing. Danny could feel warmth spreading through the beast's body, like something frozen finally thawing. Dr. Rilith moved first. She circled around the platform, checking each monitor with quick glances. Her feathers were standing almost straight up now, which Danny thought might mean excitement or shock. Maybe both. Heart rate stabilizing at 70 beats per cycle. Blood oxygen increasing. Neural activity shows improvement across all sectors. She looked at her assistant, a small, furry creature with 6 arms. Run a full diagnostic. Check for equipment malfunction. The assistant's fingers flew across multiple screens at once. All equipment functioning normally. Doctor, these readings are accurate. The crystal doctor pushed forward. This makes no sense. The toxin levels were critical an hour ago. Now they're dropping. He turned to stare at Danny. What are you doing to him? Danny did not know how to answer that. I'm just here. That's all. Just here. The doctor repeated flatly. A human child is just here, and our patient is suddenly recovering from conditions that should be fatal. He looked at Dr. Rilith. We need to run tests. On both of them. There must be some interaction we are missing. Dr. Rilith held up one wing-like arm. Wait. Look at the behavioral markers. Another screen showed patterns Danny did not understand, but Dr. Rilith clearly did. Her large eyes widened. His stress hormones are decreasing. Dramatically. She moved closer to Danny and Greyfoot, studying them carefully. The psychological shutdown we observed. It is reversing. How is that possible? The crystal doctor demanded. I do not know. Dr. Rilith tilted her head, a gesture Danny had learned meant thinking hard. But I have a theory. Someone call up Greyfoot's admission records, specifically his handler's report. An assistant pulled up files on a large display. Text scrolled past, most of it in languages Danny could not read. But he caught a few words that the translation system converted. Pack, loss, grief. Dr. Rilith read silently for a moment. There, Greyfoot lost his entire pack to the raiders before his injury. 7 members. He was alone when we found him. She looked at Danny. Storm bears are social creatures. Highly social. Without his pack, he had no reason to fight. You think this child is acting as pack? The crystal doctor sounded skeptical. I think this child is acting as someone who cares whether he lives or dies. Dr. Rilith's voice was soft. We had been treating his body, but nobody was treating his heart. Danny's hand was getting tired, but he did not want to move it. Greyfoot seemed to sense this. The massive head shifted slightly, settling more comfortably under Danny's palm. The gesture was so gentle it made Danny's chest hurt. A new doctor entered the bay, this one tall and thin with skin like polished metal. I heard the alerts. What is happening here? Dr. Rilith gave a quick summary. The metal-skinned doctor listened, then approached the platform. She looked at Danny, then at Greyfoot, then at the monitors. Her face did not show much expression, but her voice carried surprise. The human is providing comfort, she said simply. Comfort does not cure toxin poisoning, the crystal doctor snapped. No, but it can give a dying creature reason to let his body heal itself. The metal-skinned doctor gestured at the screens. Look at his immune response. It has tripled in strength since the child arrived. His body was capable of fighting. He simply chose not to. The crystal doctor opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He stared at the monitors for a long moment. This is not scientific. It is absolutely scientific, Dr. Rilith said firmly. We simply did not account for all variables. We treated Greyfoot as a biological machine that needed repair. We forgot he was a person who needed a reason to want that repair. One of the guards cleared his throat. Doctor, should we remove the child? He entered without authorization. Dr. Rilith looked at Greyfoot's monitors again. The numbers continued to improve, slowly but steadily. She looked at Danny, who met her eyes without fear. If I remove my hand, will he get worse? Danny asked. I do not know, Dr. Rilith admitted. Probably not immediately, but I suspect his progress might stop. Or reverse. She made a decision. Guards, find his child's parent or guardian. Explain the situation. Tell them he is safe and needed here. She looked at her medical team. Someone bring a chair. The boy will need to sit. You cannot be serious, the crystal doctor said. Allowing an untrained child to participate in medical treatment. He is not participating. He is succeeding where we failed. Dr. Rilitha's feathers flattened, showing her determination. I'm the senior physician on this vessel, and this is my decision. The child stays until we understand what is happening and can replicate the effect. They brought Danny a chair. He sat down gratefully, keeping his hand on Greyfoot. Someone brought him water. Someone else brought him food. The medical staff worked around them, running tests and taking samples and filling data pads with notes. 2 hours passed. Greyfoot's breathing grew stronger. At one point, the beast made a low rumbling sound that made the platform vibrate. Dr. Rilith checked her translation database. Contentment, she said quietly. He is expressing contentment. Danny smiled. He talked to Greyfoot in a low voice, telling him about Earth, about forests and mountains, about his dog Charlie, and how they used to run through fields together. He did not know if Greyfoot understood the words, but the beast's ear twitched occasionally, following his voice. When Danny's mother finally arrived, panicked and confused, she found her son sitting calmly beside a creature that could have killed him with one swipe of its paw. But the creature was not swiping. It was healing. And somehow, impossibly, her 12-year-old son was the reason why. Doctor Rilith explained everything. Danny's mother listened with growing disbelief. When the doctor finished, she looked at Danny. You scare me half to death, she said. Sorry, Mom, but I'm also very proud of you. She squeezed his shoulder carefully, avoiding disturbing his position. Stay as long as he needs you. Danny nodded. He was not going anywhere. 3 days had passed since Danny first touched Greyfoot. The medical bay had become his second home. A cot had been set up near the recovery platform where Danny could sleep without breaking contact. His mother brought him meals and clean clothes. The medical staff worked their shifts around him. Greyfoot was eating again. That was the biggest breakthrough. Dr. Rilith had prepared a special mixture based on his planet's native prey, and the storm bear had actually consumed it. Slowly, carefully, but he ate. Each meal made him stronger. Danny had learned to recognize the beast's moods now. The angle of his ears, the way his breathing changed, the subtle movements of his massive paws. They communicated without words, in a language older than either of their species. That on the morning of the 4th day, something unexpected happened. A patient 3 beds down from Greyfoot, a reptilian pilot who had been recovering from crash injuries, asked if Danny could come visit him. Doctor Rilith looked uncertain. Danny is occupied with Greyfoot. Just for a few minutes, the pilot said. His name was Wrath, and his scales had lost their shine from weeks in the medical bay. Please, I will pay. Danny looked at Greyfoot. The storm bear's eyes were open and alert now. Danny slowly lifted his hand from the beast's head. Everyone in the medical bay tensed, watching the monitors. Greyfoot's vitals remained stable. He watched Danny stand and stretch, but made no sound of distress. I will be right back, Danny told him. He walked to Wrath's bed. The pilot looked worse up close. His scales were cracked in places, and one of his arms was still in a regeneration sleeve. But his eyes were sharp and aware. You are the human who saved the storm bear, Wrath said. I did not really save him. I just stayed with him. That is more than most would do. Reth shifted in his bed, wincing. I have been here for 23 days. The doctors fixed my body, but I'm not getting better. Not really. They say it is psychological. That my mind is preventing my body from healing fully. Danny sat in the chair beside the bed. What happened to you? I crashed during a supply run. My co-pilot did not survive. Reth's voice went quiet. She was my hatchmate. We flew together for 12 years. I am sorry. Everyone is sorry. Everyone gives me sympathy and then leaves me alone in this bed. Reth looked at Danny. But you stayed with the storm bear. You did not just feel sorry for him. You were there. Danny understood then. You were lonely. Yes. The word came out like a confession. My family is 3 systems away. They cannot visit. My squadron moved on without me. I lay here and heal and feel more alone every day. Tell me about your co-pilot, Danny said. What was her name? Reth blinked in surprise. Syrah. Her name was Syrah. For the next hour, Danny listened. Reth talked about Syrah, about their adventures, about stupid arguments they had over navigation routes and meal choices. He laughed at some memories. He went quiet at others. Danny just sat and listened, asking questions when Reth seemed to need prompting. When Danny finally returned to Greyfoot, Dr. Rillith pulled him aside. Look at this. She showed him Reth's vital signs on her data pad. His stress markers have decreased significantly. His appetite rating just improved for the first time in 2 weeks. He just needed someone to talk to, Danny said. It is more than that. Dr. Rillith looked at her data, then at Danny, then back at her data. You did for him what you did for Greyfoot. You made him feel less alone. Over the next week, word spread through the medical bay. Other patients started requesting visits from a human boy, a soldier who could not sleep, an engineer who was terrified of her upcoming surgery, a young alien who missed her family. Danny visited them all. Sometimes he talked. Sometimes he just sat quietly. Sometimes he held their hands, or paws, or appendages. Each patient responded differently, but they all responded. Doctor Rillith started keeping detailed notes. She measured recovery rates, pain levels, treatment compliance. The data was remarkable. Patients Danny visited showed improvement across every metric. Not dramatic overnight changes like Greyfoot, but steady, measurable progress. The crystal-skinned doctor, whose name was Brent, remained skeptical. You cannot quantify compassion, he told Dr. Rillith during a staff meeting. This is not replicable medicine. Why does it need to be replicable? Dr. Rillith shot back. We use many treatments that work for some patients, but not others. We adapt. This is adaptation. This is superstition dressed up as care. This is care. Period. Dr. Rillith's feathers were fully raised now, showing her anger. I have been a doctor for 32 years. I have treated hundreds of species, and I'm telling you that we have been missing something fundamental. We treat bodies like machines. We forget they are inhabited by minds and hearts. Brent fell silent. Other doctors in the meeting looked uncomfortable that a voice from the doorway interrupted them. She is right. Everyone turned. Greyfoot's handler, Torith, stood there. He was a large warrior with scars covering his scales and arms thick with muscle. He looked like someone you did not want to meet in a dark corridor. But his eyes were gentle as he looked at Dr. Rillith. You told me Greyfoot would die, Torith said. You told me to say goodbye. I prepared myself to lose my partner of 15 years. He paused. Then a human child sat with him and refused to let him go. Now Greyfoot eats. He sleeps. He responds to commands. You call this superstition. I call a miracle. He walked into the room fully. I came to take Greyfoot home. He is cleared for travel, yes? Dr. Rillith checked her notes. Yes, he is stable enough for transport, but he will need continued care. He will have it. Torith looked toward the medical bay where Greyfoot waited. And he will have something else too. He will have hope, because a human child taught him that being alone does not mean being abandoned. The meeting ended quietly. Doctors filtered out, some thoughtful, some still resistant. Dr. Rillith stayed behind with Torith. Thank you, she told the warrior, for speaking up. Thank your human, Torith replied. He gave me back my friend. That afternoon, they prepared Greyfoot for transport. Danny stayed with him until the last moment, hand on the beast's head. When the time came to say goodbye, Greyfoot made a low sound and gently pressed his massive forehead against Danny's chest. "You take care of yourself," Danny whispered. Greyfoot rumbled in response. Torith led him away, and Danny watched them go. His hand felt empty without warm fur beneath it. Doctor Rilith put a wing on his shoulder. "You did something amazing. I just stayed with him." "Exactly." Dr. Vorn arrived on a Mercy's hand exactly 2 weeks after Greyfoot went home. He was a cerebrin, a species known throughout the Coalition for their logic and precision. His brain took up most of his body mass, housed in a transparent dome that let you see it pulsing with thought. Most species found it unsettling. Danny just thought it looked lonely up there, all exposed. "I am here to review questionable medical practices," Dr. Vorn announced to the staff assembly. He did not bother with pleasantries. Specifically, the use of an untrained human child in patient treatment protocols. Dr. Rilith had expected this. Word of Danny's work had spread through coalition medical networks. Some facilities were intrigued. Others were scandalized. Dr. Vorn represented the old guard, the doctors who believed medicine was pure science with no room for what they called sentiment. "The child is not performing medical procedures," Dr. Rilith said calmly. "He provides emotional support to patients who need it. Emotional support is not medicine." Then explain the data. Dr. Rilith pulled up screens showing recovery rates over the past 2 weeks. Patient improvement has increased by 40% since Danny began his visits. Pain medication requirements are down. Length of stay is decreasing. These are measurable results. Dr. Vorn studied the data with his massive brain. Correlation is not causation. Recovery rates fluctuate naturally. Your sample size is too small. Your controls are inadequate. He turned to face the assembled staff. "I am recommending immediate termination of this program and a formal review of Dr. Rilith's medical license." The room erupted. Doctors shouted over each other, some supporting Dr. Vorn, others defending Dr. Rilith. Danny sat in the back with his mother, watching it all unfold. He felt small and useless. The ship's captain called for order. She was a tall woman from Earth, actually, with gray hair and sharp eyes. Her name was Foster. "Dr. Vorn, your concerns are noted. But before we make any decisions, I want to hear from the patients themselves. Patients lack the medical expertise to evaluate treatment protocols," Dr. Vorn said. "Patients have the right to speak about their own care," Captain Foster replied firmly. "We will hold a proper hearing tomorrow. Both sides will present their evidence. Then we decide." That night, Danny could not sleep. He lay in his cot thinking about Greyfoot, about Reth, about all the patients he had visited. Had he really helped them? Or was Dr. Vorn right that it was all just coincidence? His mother found him staring at the ceiling. "You are worried about tomorrow. What if he is right? What if I did not really do anything?" She sat on the edge of his cot. "Do you remember when Grandma was dying?" Danny nodded. He had been 8 years old. She was in so much pain. The doctors gave her medicine, but she was still scared, still sad. "Do you remember what you did?" I held her hand. I told her about my day at school. "And do you remember what she said to you?" His mother's voice was soft. "She said I made it hurt less. Not the pain, but the fear. That is what you do, Danny. You make the fear hurt less. That is not nothing. That is everything." The hearing began after breakfast. The large conference room was packed with medical staff, patients who could attend, and various officials. Dr. Vorn presented first. He had charts and data analysis and statistical models. Everything looked very scientific and convincing. "The human child's presence may coincide with patient improvement," Dr. Vorn concluded, "but there is no mechanism to explain causation. We cannot build medical protocols on superstition and feeling. Medicine requires rigor." Dr. Rilith presented next. Her data was simpler but equally compelling. Recovery rates, psychological assessments, patient testimony. She spoke clearly and without emotion, letting the facts speak. "I am not suggesting we replace medicine with compassion," she said. "I am suggesting we remember that healing involves both. We have advanced so far in treating bodies that we forgot bodies contain souls. Souls are not scientifically quantifiable." Dr. Vorn interrupted. "No, but their absence is." Dr. Rilith looked directly at him. When a patient loses the will to live, we see it in their markers. When they regain that will, we see that too. Danny does not heal injuries. He restores hope. And hope is a powerful medicine. The debate continued for hours. Doctors argued over definitions and data. But then Captain Foster asked for patient testimony. Reth spoke first. The reptilian pilot walked to the front, moving easily now. His scales had regained their shine. 2 weeks ago, I was dying slowly in that bed. Not from my injuries, from loneliness and grief. The doctors fixed my body, but could not fix my heart. Then a human child sat with me and listened to me talk about my dead partner. He did not offer solutions. He did not tell me to move on. He just listened. And for the first time since the crash, I wanted to live again. Another patient spoke. Then another. Each one told similar stories. The doctors had healed their bodies, but Danny had healed something deeper. Finally, the door opened. Everyone turned. Torith walked in with Greyfoot at his side. The massive storm bear should not have been there. The hearing room was not designed for creatures his size. But he squeezed through the doorway carefully, moving with obvious purpose. Greyfoot walked directly to where Danny sat. The boy stood, and the beast lowered his huge head. Danny placed his hand on the familiar spot between Greyfoot's eyes. The storm bear rumbled, a deep sound that everyone in the room felt in their chests. Torith spoke into the silence. My partner was dying. Your best doctors said there was nothing more to be done. I was preparing to say goodbye to my friend of 15 years. His voice was rough with emotion. Then this human child refused to let him die alone. He sat with Greyfoot and promised he was there. And Greyfoot chose to live. He looked directly at Dr. Vorn. You want scientific proof? Here it stands. A creature that your equipment said should be dead. You want mechanism? The mechanism is simple. Someone cared. Someone stayed. Someone reminded my partner that life was worth fighting for. Greyfoot lifted his head and looked at Dr. Vorn. The cerebrin had no expression, but his brain pulsed rapidly in its dome. Other patients who Danny had helped stood as well. They formed a silent testimony around the boy and the beast. Young and old, multiple species, all united in one message. Danny had helped them when medicine alone could not. Captain Foster stood. Dr. Vorn, I respect your expertise and your concerns, but I cannot ignore what I am seeing. This boy is not practicing medicine. He is practicing kindness. And if kindness helps our patients heal, then I see no reason to stop it. Dr. Vorn was silent for a long moment. His brain pulsed and swirled as he processed everything. Finally, he spoke. I withdraw my complaint. The room stirred with surprise. However, Dr. Vorn continued. I do not fully understand the mechanism. I cannot explain why this works. That troubles me greatly. He looked at Danny. But I cannot deny that it does work. Logic demands I accept evidence, even when theory fails to explain it. It was not exactly an apology, but it was acceptance. And that was enough. Captain Foster made it official. Danny would continue his work under Dr. Rilith's supervision, designated as a care companion. The title was invented on the spot, but it fit. After the hearing, Dr. Vorn approached Danny privately. I do not understand you, the cerebrin said. That is okay, Danny replied. But I'm beginning to think that understanding is not always necessary. Sometimes effectiveness is enough. Dr. Vorn's brain pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps my species has forgotten something in our pursuit of pure logic. What is that? That we are more than just our minds. News traveled fast through coalition space. Within a month, medical facilities across dozens of systems were requesting information about the Mercy's hand protocols. Some called it the human method. Others called it compassionate care. Danny just called it being nice to people who hurt Doctor. Rilith found herself fielding calls from hospitals she had only read about in journals. The prestigious Helix Medical Station wanted to schedule a consultation. The military hospital at Outpost 7 requested her research data. Even the ancient medical temples on the Wisdom Worlds expressed interest. Not everyone was supportive. A prominent medical journal published an editorial calling the practice a dangerous step backward. 3 major hospitals banned any implementation of emotional support protocols, calling them unscientific. But others moved forward anyway, cautiously testing whether what worked on a Mercy's hand could work elsewhere. Danny continued his rounds on the ship. His reputation grew. New patients specifically requested assignment to the Mercy's hand just to receive his care. The medical bay that had once felt too large now felt cramped with hope. One morning, a shuttle arrived with special passengers. 5 human medical professionals from different coalition facilities. Dr. Rilith had invited them specifically. They gathered in the conference room, looking curious and slightly skeptical. "Thank you for coming," Dr. Rilith began. "I asked you here because you're human medical staff who have been working in coalition facilities. I want to know if what Danny does is something unique to him or something inherent to human medical practice." A woman named Patricia spoke first. She was an emergency physician from Station Beta. "Back on Earth, we call it bedside manner. It is considered essential to good care, but a lot of facilities treat it as secondary to technical skill. Do you use it in your practice here?" Dr. Rilith asked. Patricia hesitated. "I try to, but honestly, I thought I was supposed to adapt to coalition methods. Be more clinical, more detached. I was told emotion clouds judgment." "It can," Dr. Rilith agreed. "But absence of emotion also clouds judgment. It makes us forget we are treating people, not problems." Another human doctor, an older man named Richard, leaned forward. "When I trained on Earth, they taught us to treat the whole patient, body, mind, spirit. But when I started working at Helix Station, my supervisor told me that was primitive thinking, that advanced species had moved beyond such things." "Did you believe that?" Dr. Rilith asked. "I wanted to. Helix has technology we only dream about on Earth. But I kept noticing my patients were not getting better as fast as they should. They were healed physically, but still struggling. I started spending extra time with them when my supervisors were not watching. Just talking, listening, and they improved." The other human doctors nodded. They all had similar stories. All of them had been trained to provide emotional support as part of care. All of them had been told to abandon it in favor of more advanced methods. And all of them had secretly continued anyway, knowing it helped even if they could not explain how to a doctor. Rilith listened to everything. Then she made a decision. "I want to start a training program here on this ship, teaching coalition medical staff the techniques you use. Will you help me?" The humans looked at each other. Patricia spoke for the group. "Yes, absolutely yes." Over the next 3 weeks, they developed a curriculum. It started with simple things: how to make eye contact across species barriers, how to read body language, how to listen without immediately trying to fix, how to be present with suffering without becoming overwhelmed by it. Volunteers from the Mercy's hand medical staff attended the first sessions. Some took to it naturally. Others struggled, especially species that had been taught emotion was weakness. But slowly, practices began to change. That a Lutheran nurse learned to hold patients' hands during painful procedures. A Chitteren surgeon started asking patients about their families before operations. Dr. Vorn himself began spending 5 extra minutes with each patient just talking, though he insisted he was simply gathering psychological data. Results were immediate and measurable. Recovery times improved across the board. Patient satisfaction scores reached levels the ship had never seen. Staff burnout decreased because doctors felt more connected to their work. Other medical facilities noticed. Requests for training increased. Dr. Rilith and her human colleagues started traveling to other stations, teaching workshops, demonstrating techniques. The movement grew. Not everyone accepted it. There was significant pushback from traditional medical establishments. A formal debate was scheduled at the Coalition Medical Institute, the highest authority on medical practice in known space. Dr. Rilith was invited to present. She brought Danny, Patricia, Richard, and surprisingly, Dr. Vorn requested to join them. The Institute's Grand Hall held 2,000 seats. Everyone was filled. Medical professionals from hundreds of worlds attended, either supporting the new methods or ready to tear them apart. The opposition presented first. They had impressive credentials and devastating arguments. Emotional attachment leads to bias. Bias leads to poor decisions. Poor decisions kill patients. Therefore, emotional attachment is dangerous. The logic was sound, the delivery was convincing. Then Dr. Rilith stood to present. She did not bring complicated arguments. Instead, she showed videos. Patients before and after receiving compassionate care. The data spoke for itself. We are not suggesting doctors become emotionally compromised, she said. We are suggesting they remember their patients are more than biology. A broken bone heals the same regardless of bedside manner. But a broken spirit needs more than medicine. It needs connection. Patricia spoke next, explaining human medical history. For thousands of years, healers have known that how you treat patients matters as much as what you treat them with. We lost sight of that when technology advanced. We're not going backward. We are remembering forward. Richard demonstrated basic techniques. How to introduce yourself to a frightened patient. How to explain procedures in ways that reduce anxiety. How to be honest about pain while offering reassurance. Simple things that many in the audience had never been taught. Then Danny spoke. He was nervous in front of so many important people, but he told his story simply. About Greyfoot, about Reth, about all the patients who just needed someone to care. I am not special, he said. I'm not doing anything complicated. I just remember that being sick is scary, and nobody should have to be scared alone. That is all. The hall was silent when he finished. Then Dr. Vorn stood. The Cerebrin walked to the front, his brain pulsing with thought. I came to the Mercy's hand to stop what I considered dangerous superstition. I left convinced that I had been wrong. He paused. Not wrong about the importance of scientific rigor, but wrong about what constitutes complete medical care. We have focused so intensely on treating disease that we forgot to treat the diseased. This human child reminded us, and we owe him our attention. The vote came 2 days later. The Coalition Medical Institute officially recognized compassionate care protocols as valid medical practice. Facilities were encouraged, though not required, to implement emotional support programs. Training resources would be made available. Humans would be valued for their expertise in this area rather than dismissed for IT. IT was not a complete victory. Many facilities still refused. Many doctors still scoffed. But it was a beginning, and beginnings mattered. 6 months had changed everything and nothing. The Mercy's hand still traveled its route through coalition space. Doctors still treated injuries and illness. Patients still arrived scared and left healed. But something fundamental had shifted in how those healings happened. Danny was 13 now, taller. His voice had started changing, which sometimes embarrassed him during patient visits. But his hands were still gentle and his presence still calm. Those things had not changed. He walked through the medical bay on a quiet afternoon. Most beds were empty. A good day. Reth had stopped by earlier that week, fully recovered and back to flying. He had brought Sierra's family with him, introducing them to the human boy who had helped him grieve properly. They had cried together, all of them, and somehow that made things better. Dr. Rilith found Danny in the observation lounge, watching stars streak past. She sat beside him without speaking at first. They had developed their own comfortable silences over the months. I received a message today, she finally said. From Torith. Danny looked up. How is Greyfoot? Fully recovered. Back to active duty protecting colonies. Dr. Rilith showed him a photo on her data pad. Greyfoot stood in snow, his pack around him. 7 new storm bears, young ones, looked to him as their leader. He has formed a new pack. Torith says he is happier than he has been in years. Danny smiled at the image. I am glad. Torith also says Greyfoot still makes that rumbling sound whenever he sees human children. He has decided humans are pack, regardless of species. Dr. Rilith's feathers ruffled with amusement. You made quite an impression. They sat in comfortable silence again. Danny thought about everything that had happened. The hearing, the training programs, the medical facilities slowly changing their practices. It felt too big for one person, especially one kid who just wanted to help. Do you ever wonder if you did the right thing? Danny asked, letting me stay with Greyfoot that first day. Every day, Dr. Rilith admitted. Not because I regret it, but because it challenged everything I thought I knew about medicine. That is uncomfortable. But good uncomfortable. Yes, good uncomfortable. She looked at him. You know you cannot stay a child forever. Eventually, you will need to decide what you want to do with this gift you have. Danny had been thinking about that too. I want to keep helping, but I also want to understand why it works. Maybe I should become a real doctor. You are already a real doctor, Dr. Rilith said firmly. You heal people. That makes you a doctor, regardless of credentials. But yes, formal training would let you help in new ways. There are medical schools on Earth that would accept you eagerly. Or you could study here, in coalition facilities. What do you think I should do? I think you should do what feels right. Trust yourself the way Greyfoot trusted you. The door to the lounge opened. A nurse poked her head in. Dr. Rilith? We have a new admission. Trauma case from a mining accident. The patient is stable physically, but very distressed. He keeps asking if the human boy is available. Dr. Rilith looked at Danny. Are you? Danny stood. Always. They walked to the medical bay together. The patient was a Deltharian, a species Danny had not worked with before. Blue skin, for arms, large eyes that currently held fear. His name was Pell, and his leg was wrapped in a regeneration cast. The cave collapsed, Pell said when Danny sat beside him. My crew got out, but I was trapped for 6 hours in the dark. His voice shook. They say my leg will heal, but I cannot stop shaking. Every time I close my eyes, I am back in that dark. That sounds terrifying, Danny said simply. The doctors gave me medicine for anxiety. It does not help. They say it will fade with time. But time feels so long right now. Danny did not have magic words. He never did. He just pulled his chair closer. Tell me about your crew. Were they like? Pell blinked. My crew? Yeah. He said they got out safely. You must care about them a lot. Slowly, Pell started talking. About his team. About how they looked out for each other in dangerous work. About the relief he felt knowing they survived, even though he was trapped. As he talked, his shaking decreased. Not gone, but less. His breathing steadied. Danny listened. He asked questions. He stayed present. The same things he always did, Doctor. Rilith watched from nearby, updating charts, but keeping one eye on them. She had seen this hundreds of times now, but it still amazed her. The way Danny could reach people across species barriers. The way fear became manageable in his presence. After an hour, Pell was calmer. Not healed, trauma took time, but no longer drowning in it. He thanked Danny before the boy moved to his next patient. The evening shift began. Danny made his final rounds. Each patient received a few minutes of his time. Some just needed a smile. Others needed conversation. One elderly patient just wanted him to sit quietly while she slept, knowing someone was there. When Danny finally returned to his quarters, his mother was waiting with dinner. They ate together, talking about ordinary things. School assignments he was behind on. A message from his father back on Earth. His dog Charlie, who was getting old, but still running through fields. Normal life continuing despite extraordinary circumstances. Before bed, Danny checked his messages. One was from Patricia, the human doctor who had helped train staff. She was starting a program on her station, teaching young people interested in compassionate care. She wanted to know if Danny would visit sometime, share his experiences. Another message was from medical school on Earth. They had heard about his work and wanted him to know he had a place there whenever he was ready. No entrance exams required. His experience spoke for itself. Danny saved both messages to think about later. Right now, he was just tired. Good tired. The kind that comes from a day spent helping people. He lay in his cot, looking at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, Greyfoot was running through snow with his new pack. Reth was flying supply runs again. Pell would heal from his trauma. Thousands of patients across Coalition space were receiving better care because someone finally remembered that healing needed more than medicine. And it had started with a 12-year-old boy who simply refused to let a dying creature face death alone. Danny had not planned any of this. He had just done what felt right in a moment. But that was how change always started, was it not? One person doing one right thing in one moment. Then another person. Then another. Until suddenly the whole galaxy was different. His last thought before sleep was simple. Tomorrow there would be more patients who needed someone to say, I'm here. And he would be there for them. Just like always, because some medicines could not be measured or manufactured or mass-produced. Some medicines required presence, compassion, and a simple willingness to care. Human medicines, the kind that healed not just bodies, but souls, and the galaxy was finally learning to prescribe them.